What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another War Within video. Hope you're all doing very well. I want to talk about this FARSEER build that I've been trying out, and I'm going to show you some of the progress that I've been making in the Mythic Plus journey. I did two 12s yesterday that we just kind of knocked them off one after the other. I managed to do a Stone Vault and a Siege of Borealis, and in reverse order actually, but anyway, I now have 5 of them done, and I did the last 2 dungeons with this FARSEER build that I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to talk a lot about this in the video, but let's just first talk about why I'm switching to FARSEER. Number one, they got buffed, right? So they got pretty buffed this patch on Tuesday. The ancestors are doing a lot more damage now. The Giga Chads who do all the sims and stuff and check all this out, they are thinking this is basically a 7% buff on single target and AoE for FARSEER. They still don't think it's as good as the Stormbringer build in Mythic Plus. Fair enough. We're kind of here to talk about whether or not that's true. I did do a comparison video between FARSEER and Stormbringer in my previous video, so go check that out if you want an actual like one-to-one comparison. What I've done with the build is I've added ELE Blast into the build, and I've actually switched off of Charge Conduit onto Primal Elementalist. Now, this basically means that you're going to lose some lightning rod damage because your lightning rods won't be up as often, and obviously they're losing 25% of their damage, but you're going to gain ELE damage, which I think is really interesting. And it means that your Primal Storm Elemental ends up doing about 4% to 5% of your damage, depending on the dungeon. You can see he did 4.4% of our damage right there. And then our lightning rod damage is, of course, down to 3.4%. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. The reason that I'm investing into the Elemental more than I have been in the past is because we get cooldown reduction for the Elemental now. So Offering from Beyond is 5 seconds off the cooldown of the fire or storm elemental whenever you summon an ancestor, and we're summoning ancestors basically all the time. I'm taking routine communication, and then whenever they die, there's a chance that we'll get another one back with Ancient Fellowship, and then of course I'm summoning 2 ancestors every time I do Primordial Wave and Ancestral Swiftness. So that means our uptime on our ancestors is actually pretty high. It ends up being about 50% of the time. You always will have an ancestor with you helping you do damage, which is really good. It also means, because we're taking Elemental Blast, that our Elemental Blast buff uptime is ridiculous because we're casting Elemental Blast ourselves. We're casting Elemental Blast inside of Ascendance windows, which means we're overloading, which means we get another buff. Our ancestors, when they expire, they give us an Elemental Blast buff as well. So it's a really cool kind of synergy that all kind of works together with Elemental Blast, and obviously getting Aftershock procs, getting 2-minute Ascendance, so you get more Elemental Blast overloads inside of more Ascendances that you're doing, right? Because we're taking the 2-minute one, and then having the ancestors do their thing. I really like this build, and I'm going to show you how we're managing it in the plus 12 environment, okay? So this was the Siege of Borealis that we did, and one thing that I really do want to focus on, one of the main reasons I took Elemental Blast was to be able to focus on priority target damage. And it's not so much that we're like funneling, because funnel is a very specific thing, and I think only certain specs in the game can do it. We have like what I would call like a pseudo funnel. It's not really funnel, but if you're wondering what I'm talking about, funnel damage in this game basically refers to any spec that can generate mass amounts of resources from multiple mobs, okay? And while they're generating those resources, they're turning that into a single target attack that funnels that damage into one target and blows it up. So you're generating resources from the masses, and then you're funneling those resources into like a single target attack that does a lot of damage. In the case of like an assassination rogue, for example, they generate all their resources from their bleeds and their poisons, and they turn that into like a big mutilate, right? And then, or an envenom, and then they envenom the enemy, and then it pops like a poison puddle, which does more AoE damage, but they're envenoming that one target, so they're kind of funneling all the resources in there. On the ELE Shaman, I'm calling it like pseudo funnel because we are generating resources from things like Liquid Magma Totem and Chain Lightning, and then you can turn the resources you've generated into an ELE Blast. And the ELE Blast can obviously will just go into one target and do a phenomenal amount of damage. Now, I'm going to showcase this a little bit later, but I just want to showcase how good the build actually is in general. And I'll get to Chopper Red Hook because this is the first like big moment, I think, for the build. One thing I want to talk about just before we get to Chopper Red Hook is this emphasis that I'm going to continue to talk about in this video about banking your Maelstrom. Make sure that you bank Maelstrom as much as you can. So when you're getting towards the end of a pack, do not use your spenders. Don't use ELE Blast or Earthshock. Don't use Earthquake, because there's a chance that you will proc Ascendance from Deeply Rooted, because Deeply Rooted procs off your spenders. So it's a little bit degenerate, it's a little stupid, but you do not want to use your spenders towards the end of a pack, because if you get an Ascendance proc at the very end of a pack, it's wasted, right? So instead, what you want to do is you want to bank Maelstrom, use Chain Lightning, Lava Burst, Liquid Magma Totem is fine, Flame Shock, Lightning Bolt. Those are all good choices, and you're going to bank as much Maelstrom as possible. Another really cool thing about the Farseer tree is that we get 25 additional max Maelstrom, so you can get up to 175 Maelstrom. So I'm going into Chopper Red Hook now with 156 Maelstrom banked up, ready to go with Ascendance, with Stormkeeper, and we're going to be doing a lot of damage. There goes my Ancestors right there, and now he's targeting me, so I have to pop Spirit Walker's Grace. But look at my damage. We're able to run away from Chopper Red Hook with Spirit Walker's Grace while channeling these huge elemental blasts. We were peaking at 2.5 million damage per second there. Really crazy. And then boom, we get an Ascendance proc. So imagine if I had been using my spenders on the previous pack before we got in here, I might have procced Ascendance on those other packs. So you want to make sure, again, bank Maelstrom at the end of a pack. I cannot stress this enough. It is so important that you do that so that you're able to make sure you're hitting your Deeply Rooted procs at the right time. You're able to sort of like game that a little bit, right? That's the good thing about that. So basically this entire fight, Chopper Red Hook is either chasing me or the Priest, and multiple times he's chasing me. So Spirit Walker's Grace is your best weapon here, and you have instant cast procs on your Lava Burst and Frost Shocks because of Ice Fury. There's a lot of flexibility that you have, which is really good. Even if you're running Elemental Blast, which you might be like, oh, Zuko, Elemental Blast has a cast time. Yeah, it does have a cast time, but guess what? Half the time it doesn't, because you have Ancestral Swiftness on a 30-second cooldown, right? Because you're running Farseer, this is another advantage of it. You have every 30 seconds, you can have an instant cast ELE Blast if you want to. So right here, I do my Primordial Wave, I do my Ancestral Swiftness, and then I do an instant cast Elemental Blast. And then my Primordial Wave has also given me an instant cast Lava Burst, so I send that as well. So you get a lot of instant casts with the Farseer, and in particular, instant casting ELE Blast is so valuable. It is so valuable to have an instant ELE Blast. It kind of removes, in my opinion, it doesn't completely remove, but it alleviates one of the problems with ELE Blast versus Earthshock. The Earthshock argument, of course, is that Earthshock is cheaper and it's instant cast. That's the best part about it, right? So, and it doesn't do that much less damage than ELE Blast, but the ELE Blast argument is that it does more damage. It gives you a buff either to Mastery, Crit, or Haste, but the downside is that it has a cast time, right? It's slower, and then it costs way more Maelstrom, but the cast time gets at least partially alleviated because of the 30-second Ancestral Swiftness. It's so good. Here's a huge Ascendance window. We kind of pop off here. Again, even though you're running Farseer, you can still have pop-off moments like this where you're doing like 4 to 5 million DPS. I think the Stormbringer build, of course, is going to have probably bigger, higher peaks, right? Higher peaks versus Farseer, but I still think Farseer can pump. And then here, I'm doing ELE Blast. I'm not Earthquaking 3 targets. I'm ELE Blasting. If I ever have 3 targets or less, it's actually better to just ELE Blast a priority target, 100%. The damage will be just as good, because Earthquake, my Earthquake right now does about 250,000 damage over 6 seconds to any target that it hits. So if you have 3 targets, that Earthquake is going to do 750,000 damage, basically. My ELE Blast does like 789,000 or 790,000. So it's actually just better. It's just better for the team if you prio target a really important enemy and hit them with that LE blast when you're on 3 targets or less. Once you get to 4 targets, Earthquake is always technically better, but I would still say there's tremendous value in pressing LE blast even in those situations when you've got bigger packs of AoE mobs, because there's going to be a priority target in there that you want to kill. For example, the spotter in this next pack. There's like 4 non or 5 non-elite enemies here, and then there's a spotter. The spotter should die, so you should just be doing LE Blast here. Doing Earthquake is fine, but it just means that the spotter is going to take a lot longer to die, and that's just kind of a waste, honestly. The more time you can save by murdering priority targets, the better your key is going to go. I'm telling you right now, this is one of the things that you can bring to your key. One of the advantages you can bring with a build that runs Elemental Blast like this, okay? Let's move forward here. Again, there's lots of packs that are like this. This pack basically has 2 priority targets, the Wave Shaper and then the Commander. The Commander is somebody who you probably should just be putting all of your LE blasts into, right? Just blast him down as best you can, because if you kill him quickly, then the fight is over. Because all the other mobs, they're dead already. Look how much more health he has. He has basically 30 to 40% more HP than every other mob in there. So if you're funneling him down, then that can really be good for the team. And again, this is a mindset I want you to try and think about getting into if you're playing this build. Try and forget about your AoE damage. There's moments like this where you, of course, want to be doing AoE damage because there's lots of important targets, but I would highly recommend that you try to put it on the back burner and just think about doing priority damage to targets that need to die, because most compositions, if you're pugging, most keys don't have somebody in them that's really thinking critically about doing priority target damage. They just don't. Everybody's like, I'm just going to do whatever build I'm supposed to do, and I'm going to pump as much AoE damage as I'm supposed to pump, because that's what it makes me look good, and yeah, that's just what I want to do, right? And it's like, that's fair, except that you're going to need somebody to do prio damage for the most part. So, like, Sin Rogues are like one of the best examples of it right now in the current season, but if you're pugging especially, people just aren't going to be thinking about doing that. So here's our single target damage on Dread Captain Lockwood. I had some really unlucky moments here in this key where I do like a Primordial Wave combo right here, and then she jumps away. I forgot what percentage she jumped away at. I think it's just timed, but I do Primordial Wave right here, and then she jumps away. It's like literally the worst possible timing ever. And then here's an example of prio damage I'm talking about. The Cannoneer has a lot more health than the Deckhands. I'm doing AoE damage right now. I'm just doing AoE damage. I'm putting Earthquakes down. I'm not really paying attention to the Cannoneer. Look at the Cannoneer's health. He has 40% of his health left, 35% of his health left when the Deckhands die. So on the next set of ads, when they come down, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you do priority damage. And we're going to do it here. I'm going to focus the Cannoneer this time. This is round 2. So we're doing Chain Lightning to generate resources, because we get more Maelstrom if we do Chain Lightning here. And then I'm doing LE Blast to blow up the Cannoneer. That's my little combo here. And guess what? If I'm focusing the way that I should be, the Cannoneer's going to die basically right when the Deckhands die. Boom. He actually died before the last Deckhand did. So now the cannon drops on the ground more quickly, and we can get the boss back into the arena. That's what I'm talking about. You can have moments like that where you contribute to the team in a really, really big way. That matters. It really matters if you're able to do that. And it's subtle sometimes. It looks kind of subtle, but I promise you, it's worth doing, okay? It's worth doing that. That was some crazy LE blast right there. Now we have a bit of a blunder here. The tank goes up here, and he pulls, and then he ends up just dying. So now we have to kite. What I want to talk about here really quickly is that a lot of people will leave plus 12 keys as soon as there's like a blunder like this, right? And you might think to yourself, oh, the key is dead. It's a plus 12. The margins are so slim, like you're all going to die here, and it's over. It's not over. It's not. The tank actually gets up, and he runs in, and he ends up dying again right now. He ends up dying again, which is really unlucky, but it doesn't brick our key. He hasn't died yet. Sorry, I thought he was going to die right there. It doesn't actually end up bricking our key. We just keep cutting back. I keep using my CC. I'm using Cap Totem. I'm using Earthbind Totem there. Tank dies again. We're slowing them. We're keeping the fight alive. I don't even have Rocky out, but I don't need him. We just kite backwards and everything's okay. I even have Ascendants coming back up here. And I just wanted to show you guys that it's these kinds of situations that tend to wipe a lot of groups, and they just like, somebody will end up leaving. But if you just persevere, I promise you, you can still time a key with actually plenty of time to spare. So we do throw an Ascendance out here because I have 2-minute Ascendance, And you know what? I might as well just run it. Anytime you have Ascendance up, you should basically just cast it. Look at all the stuff flying out of me. Holy cow, man. Look at that right there. Watch how many ELE blasts come out here. And how many lava bursts. So here comes the ELE blast. Again, this is an instant cast ELE blast from Ancestral Swiftness. So boom, 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 boom. And then the lava burst as well. Oh my god, that looks so cool. So we did a lot of damage here. We salvaged this pole, and we end up salvaging basically the whole key, which is really, really helpful. I'm going to skip ahead to the next boss. This is just regular trash pulling. Our damage was, again, lower than the rest of the crew. I ended up dying here. So don't look at this pull is bad. I ended up dying. That's not a good example. Here's another AoE pack. I just want to do a quick comparison of our damage. I think we will have less damage than our friends here. But again, that's because we're trying something very particular here. We're trying to do this kind of funneling strat. On a pull like this, you don't need to funnel anything. You don't need to prio any targets because they're all dangerous targets. So of course, Earthquake is the proper button here over Elemental Blast, but we're still doing competitive damage. I just wanted to showcase that. Now we'll move on to the last couple packs here. We're gonna pull Hadal, and we don't end up pulling the other pack to the right. So there's a pack over here that we don't ever pull that pack. So we've got Bloodlust coming up here, but we don't use, I think we do. I don't remember if we use it here. We get some big damage going out at the beginning here with ELE blasts. And then the fight, we're gonna go up here, and then we're gonna like dip down quite a bit, and then we're gonna get our ascendance back. And by the end of the fight, we actually are doing a competitive amount of damage, and that's what I really want to focus on here. So the other guys are overtaking us now. The Unholy DK got his Abomination back up, and you know he's got big cooldowns rolling, so of course he's gonna pull ahead of us, and that's fine. But now we have our ancestors are coming up, and then we have ascendants coming up. And we're going to start doing damage. This Ascendance proc at the beginning wasn't very good. But then it actually gets really good. We get a proc.
Oh, we got a proc.
Yeah.
Okay, it got a lot better. Oh, it's getting so much better.
And then our damage goes back up. Isn't that cool? So again, you can see inside those Ascendance windows, ELE blasts get so much additional value versus like an Earthshock. Because an overloading ELE blast just does a lot more damage, and you're getting a second buff. So you're maintaining those elemental blast buffs basically permanent. Like I have them up all the time. It's crazy. I have them up all the time, especially on boss fights. So there we go. I get to the end of the fight here, and we slowly creep up into second place, I think, doing just over 900k. And 920 at the end there, because I think we got an Ascendance proc. We did have Ascendance back up. If the fight had lasted longer, we could have done another Ascendance. So we could have had 3 Ascendances on one boss fight. You can see that's kind of the value. Here's the final boss fight. We get our Liquid Magma Totem over here to get an additional Flame Shock, so that when we do our ancestors here, we're going to get a little bit more haste. And then we get big damage here. We're in Ascendance. Big overloads on ELE Blast. We have PI as well. We're getting PI'd by a priest, which is really good. I'm not really here to talk about the damage overall. That's not the point of this video. Yes, we're getting PI, so I understand the damage is going to be a little bit skewed. I'm mostly talking about how we're doing our damage, what we're contributing to the team, having Elemental Blast and being able to prio important targets. That is the value that I'm trying to talk about here in this video. The overall damage, of course, is what it is, but I want to show you that even if we're doing less damage than the other guys, the other DPS in our key, we're contributing in an important way. They're doing big AoE damage. That's great. We can do something else. And our damage still stays competitive, but the mobs that need to die are dying at the appropriate time. I'm telling you, as you climb into the higher keys, the most important thing by far is things like using defensives, using crowd control, and priority target damage. That is like, it's such an important thing at the end as you start getting into those higher keys. Because if the priority mobs are living for a really long time, they're the most dangerous ones. They're doing the most dangerous, like they're doing the most damage to your team. They need to die quicker. That's just how it goes. Like we get an Ascendance proc here in a second. It looks really cool. It's near the end of this tentacle's life here, but it's awesome. So our damage is good so far. And we have Ascendance coming up for the final platform. I actually think I end up using it on this next tentacle, which is really cool. We end up just blowing up this next tentacle. So our Ascendance is going to proc here right now. Once we do this next ELE blast, there it goes. Ready? We go. Boom. And then you see all the lava bursts. Then we immediately turn to this guy and we get another ELE blast inside of our Ascendance window, which you can see how many ELE blasts that was like 3 it just fired off there, which is really, really cool. And then we have our regular Ascendance window, plus we get Ancestral, or we get to move with Spirit Walker's Grace. It just looks so good. It feels so clean. The damage is good. We're keeping up with the other boys, which we should be, of course, given that our build is focused a little bit more on single target. There we go. And now we're at the top of the meters again, which is nice. Should be. And I'm doing the turret, so I'm a little bit behind on damage when we're transitioning here because I just volunteered to do the turret, but that's okay. This is where your wind dash, gust of wind. Gust of wind is really huge here to get over these planks. I put down my totem for defense, and then we're back to the races. Get my totem going, Stormkeeper, Ice Fury, and then we're into a Ancestor window, and we're going to catch up on damage once again. We end up again, if this was a higher key, our Ascendance would actually have come back right in the nick of time at the end. So we've already done Ascendance twice in this fight, by the way. We've already done Ascendance twice in this fight, which is insane to think about, but that's just that's what you get when you have 2-minute Ascendance, which is really, really cool. And we might end up getting another Ascendance at the end here, but we end up killing the boss too quickly, but that's okay. That's just part of the value I wanted to showcase there. Here's Primordial Wave, Ancestral Swiftness, and an ELE Blast into an instant Lava Burst. That combo is really, really good. And then our Ancestors are out. They're helping us out. They're keeping us, maintaining our Elemental Blast buffs, which again are basically just permanently up all the time. We have the Mastery and the Crit and the Haste up all the time, which is really cool. And yeah, we finish off this key with plenty of time to spare. So even though we had 6 deaths, we had that horrendous wipe with the Paladin tank, we still were able to time this with almost 6 minutes to spare. So I'm telling you right now, you can have a blunder in these kinds of plus 12s and you will still be able to time them no problem. I would not worry about it. People are just so crazy that like there's just so many doomers out there, man. It's just, I don't want to call people stupid or anything, but it's really bad if you just leave the key that early. You don't need to, because you've got time to get it done. So the build was really good. Not sure if I looked at the damage. There's the damage here. Ancestors are our top damage. Our ELE Blast damage was really high, 12%. We had a 4.3 mil ELE Blast. Our Primal Storm Elemental was 4.4% of our damage. So again, we're losing Lightning Rod damage, but we're gaining ELE damage. And remember, we're cooling down our Elemental with the FARSEER tree, so we get more uptime on him. He's probably like a 1.5 minute cooldown, I would say. With all the Ancestors that we're spawning, he goes from a 2.5 minute cooldown to a 1.5 minute cooldown, which is significant. That's really good. So there's the damage there. That's just what the build looks like. I wanted to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to make this build work. Make sure you're banking Maelstrom at the end of a pull so that you're not proccing Deeply Rooted by accident and you have a lot of Maelstrom built up for the next pack. Make sure that you're using your 2-minute Ascendances on cooldown. It gives you more flexibility. It does a lot of damage. Make sure that you're utilizing your Ancestors as much as possible so that you can cool down your Storm Elemental, which is really, really good. And I think that you'll find with Elemental Blast that your priority target damage is incredibly high. I really like it a lot. I took this into a Stone Vault as well. I'm not going to show you right now, but we went and did a plus 12 Stone Vault and ended up timing it as well. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. I would love to hear from you guys down there. Thank you so much again for watching. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one.